What's up? It's Jeremy Picker from Amber Creative.
This is Deanna with In the Zoning and Print Girl Mafia.
This is Ray Weiss with Printing the Night of the Lion.
You're listening to the Two Regular Guys podcast.
Hosted by Terry Combs RG, Regular Guy, and Aaron Montgomery.
The place to be for industry news.
The best dad jokes on earth, along with relevant topics to apparel decorating.
Fashion to the people.
All right. Welcome into the show. Today is Friday, January 19th, 2024. My name is Aaron Montgomery. I'm with our Success Group, and my mission is to inspire people to fall in love with their small businesses and get to do that right here on the Two Regular Guys. As you can tell, I am solo today. No Terry on the front side and no Eric in the background. You guys wouldn't have seen that, but those two fine gentlemen are out at the Long Beach show, the Impressions Expo in Long Beach. And so I said, I got it. I'm holding down the fort. Plus, we had an opportunity to speak to somebody really special today. His gentleman's name is Mike Scrutton, and he's from Adobe, and he's going to be joining me in just a moment. We're going to discuss graphics. We're going to talk about a little bit about AI, right? You can't talk in this world of business today without some conversation of AI coming up, and then just unlocking the power of Adobe Print. So Mike is somebody I've had a chance to talk to. I met him in person at the Printing United event out there in Atlanta last year. And we had a get together earlier this week, and just somebody I really enjoy talking to, really smart guy. So I'm looking forward to sharing him with you guys here today. Also want to remind everybody, stay till the very end to get your helping of the secret sauce. As I mentioned, Terry is in Long Beach for the Impressions Expo, but through the magic of video, he is going to be bringing you the secret sauce today, and he's going to be talking to you screen printers out there about properly degreasing your screens. Also, speaking of the Impressions Expo out there in Long Beach, all of our news correspondents, they're unavailable this week as well. So we're gonna skip over the news segment today. We do that from time to time. Cassie was carrying us for a long time, and now we've got Marcia and Adrian back, and looking at adding a few more people to the mix. But right now, we're just going to skip that. So stay tuned for next week. We will be back next week with an episode of the news there for you, so you can catch up on all the latest happenings in the industry. So for those of you tuned in live, love to check in with you, say good morning. Chuck, I appreciate you checking in. Good morning, and thanks for tuning in. Make sure that you guys are getting out there and sharing this episode with your friends. You're not going to want to miss what we're talking about here today with the power of Adobe Print. So we also would not be the Two Regular Guys without a dad joke. So before I share the dad joke, I just want to give a special shout out to my friend Michelle Wilson. She's part of our mastermind group, the Masters of Success. This joke is coming to you courtesy of this calendar right here. She sent a nice little note along with it saying, I saw this calendar and I knew who had to have it. So right there, the 2024 calendar of dad jokes. So buckle up, you guys. We're jam-packed with lots of great dad jokes here. So let's do that really quickly here, and I'll come back with the dad joke. Okay, so without Eric, there's not going to be some fun banner, but so just play along at home here. So here's the deal. You should not kiss anyone on January 1st, as it's only the first date. But okay. All right, there we go. So that's our dad joke, courtesy of the calendar from my good friend Michelle Wilson. So thank you guys for always looking forward to the dad jokes. We'll see if there's any follow-up. Charles, good morning. Thanks for joining us. And Mr. David Gross from Condi Systems, thank you for being here this morning and tuning in. So before we get Mike in here, before we dive in, I do want to thank everybody who is checking out the Two Regular Guys podcast, whether you're listening to us on the podcast side of things, or if you are tuning in live or watching us on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn, wherever you might catch your video updates, you can do so there. But we just want to thank you. We really appreciate you. And we're I didn't check the exact number. We're about 527, maybe. This is 527, 528 potentially, since we started in 2013. And just really appreciate you guys, all the regulators out there, and you guys being a part of this. So speaking of being a part of this, we do need your voices. You've heard some of the new intros over the last few months here, but we're always looking to keep those fresh and up to date. In fact, some of the intros we already have, people have moved companies already. So we would love to have all of you guys, all of the decorators out there, all of the regulators join us and be a part of this and be a part of our show intro. We've made it really easy. If you'll just go to decorators.inc/intro, we've got some prompts for you to make it really easy. Just enjoy, right? Add your fun to it, right? I think it was Adrian, or maybe it was Cassie, that said best dad joke. It's Cassie, best dad jokes on the planet. Whatever, just have a little fun, make your voice part of this, and don't be left out of that opportunity. And we are always looking for new guests. And so if you've got a topic that you'd like to hear, or maybe you've got an expertise you'd like to share. So if you or anyone you know would like to join us, you can just have them or yourself. You can go to calendly.com/2. That's the number 2 regular guys, and pick out a Friday that's going to work for you. Or again, if you've got an episode that you'd like to hear, or somebody you think we should be reaching out to, you can just reach out to us through our email address, info@tworegularguys.com, and share your show ideas with us. Also, if you are listening to the podcast version here, we would very much appreciate you giving us a review. And that way your friends and people out there can become regulators as well and understand what being a regulator is all about. And so that review really helps us. And you can review us on anywhere podcasts can be found. We've made sure to try to be listed on all the active places: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, or wherever you do your podcast listening, we should be there. And so if you are listening on the podcast version, like I said, please give us a review. That very much would appreciate that. Also, if you are one of those folks that's tuned in to the live right now, in fact, saw a couple more folks checking in here. Rena, good morning. Thanks for being here. Make sure that you take a quick moment here and just go share this. Hit that share button, or post it into your social media feeds. Go whatever group you're active in, post it in there, and let's get some more people in here so they can be learning from Mike here in just a moment. And if you have any questions of Mike, we may or may not have time to get those in front of him. So you got to be here live to check that out. All right. So without further ado, we're going to dive right in. That's a great part about rolling solo is there's not a ton of back and forth here today until we get our guests in here. So I am going to welcome in Mike, and I did not check the pronunciation of his last name, but I think I did okay. But let's find out here. So welcome in Mike Scrutton with Adobe. Mike, how close was I?
You're in the ballpark, Aaron. Mike Scrutton.
That's good for me, by the way.
How we rolled, but yeah, you're close.
Okay, well, tell us what it is correctly then, please.
It's Mike Scrutton. Yeah,
Scrutton.
So,
okay.
Remember, sounds like button.
There we go. That makes it super easy. All right. Well, welcome in, Mike. Thank you so much for being here. So we kind of gave up a while back, kind of reading these carefully curated bios, and kind of got a little kind of made you feel icky, actually. But we always felt, hey, it's best to learn about you from you. So maybe share a little bit about you, your journey with Adobe, and just kind of how you interact with the print and garment decorating industry.
Yeah, well, first of all, you'll notice I have a strange accent, so I don't hail from these lands. I'm a naturalized citizen. We've been here 17 years. I started out fresh out of college into the software industry, computer software, specifically in print back in the UK. I was for a company designing software that helped people print, and my early days were spent running image setters, processing film, making proofs. I actually did a bunch of work in the newspaper industry back in the early 90s as well, standing in press halls and smelling the ink and almost losing an arm on a printing press. But that journey took me to Adobe after a number of years. Next year, I will have been at Adobe for about 30 years. So that makes me a veteran. Typically, I work at the back end of the process, right? We work with people who are actually at the printing and manufacturing end of the pipeline for print.
Okay.
That's the team I'm a part of. But you don't spend 30 years at Adobe without getting a good appreciation for the entire sort of design, creation, all the way through to manufacturer workflow. So, I mean, that's part of what I do here at Adobe is I'm an evangelist who can speak print to the people who want to do print, but also explain print to the people that don't print. And hopefully understand a little bit about the creative process as well and bring that to the table to try and make sure the whole thing works end to end, because there's nothing wrong with being able to design stuff and then not being able to print it. So hopefully I have a foot in both camps and can speak to both of those.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I know in our conversations that we've had so far, I've been really impressed with how you kind of bring everything together, and so I'm excited about our conversation here today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
definitely.
I'm a master of everything and expert at absolutely nothing.
There we go. That's the way to go. All right. Well, we've got some other folks checking in here from Cool Boston, and Dot Tone Dan Campbell says, "Good morning, gang." So, all right, Mike. Well, as I mentioned kind of at the top of the show, it's hard to have a conversation these days without the word or term AI or artificial intelligence coming up, whether that's in our marketing or kind of the business operations, or really in our world, a ton of talk about it in the graphics space. And so maybe you could start us off here, just kind of give us a little more insight into how AI technology has historically been used in design and print workflows, and maybe how you see it evolving, or, through the Adobe world that you play in there.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I remember back when I was in college, one of my best friends did a paper on AI back in the early 90s. So, and it goes back so much further than that.
Yeah, sure.
Back to the 40s as well. So the concept isn't new. I think what's interesting over the last few years is it's really caught the public attention through various online services that do AI. I think when I was growing up, we thought the robots were going to come and take over the world, and now we think it's the AI that's going to take over the world. And to be honest, the robots taking over the world is kind of got to the stage where it cleans my floor, and that's as close as the robots got to taking over my world. So I don't know if that's a predictor for where AI is.
If that's what they want to do, then let them clean the floor.
Yeah, right. That's okay. But okay, so AI is a technology, right? We've been applying technologies to our industry for decades. The whole point that we're using computers and software and lasers and stuff to decorate garments is applying technology, and AI is another technology, right? Yeah. One of the things that I've seen, a couple of areas I think this is really applying to us now. I do a lot of photography. I'm sure a lot of other people do as well who are listening. And one of the things that we're not very good at is sorting through all those photos that we took on our vacations or on our travels, and being able to go back and find them later. That idea of tagging photos or indexing them and all that sort of thing is something that we don't spend a lot of time on. And for several years now, we've been used to the idea of using software, or even frankly, just our phones, that will tell us, here's a photo of your wife on this beach on this particular day, right? and that sort of software to allow us to do searching easily is something we're just used to, and a lot of that sort of thing is powered by AI today, right? That's how we get that benefit. We're seeing some other uses of AI in the graphics industry, maybe by giving an AI engine a prompt and having it not just find an image, but maybe we have in our archives, but but maybe even blend or merge or improve on an image that we already have. I had to create a design the other week for somebody, and they had a picture of their mother, and she was sat at a table in a cafe, and there was a whole lot of noise going on behind her. And part of the brief was, can you get rid of that noise? We don't mind her being in a cafe, but it just doesn't. She's not the focus of attention. Yeah. And with a few clicks, I was not an expert in retouching, and I certainly didn't have hours and hours to spend on this job. But with a few clicks, I was able to clean up the image, remove a bunch of the content from the background, actually improve the scene that she was sitting in, and this daughter now has this beautiful picture of her mom, which she can use for various things, put in a nice frame or whatever going forward. So one of the things that AI is doing, I think, is empowering us. I care slightly less about the idea that I'm going to ask for a picture of a celebrity. Who would have thought 12 months ago, oh, picture of Taylor Swift at a football game, because that's never going to happen, right? I mean, I could care less about using AI to generate that sort of thing, but actually taking my content and improving on it, or helping my clients get exactly what they want with less time or less effort. That's really, I think, where the power is coming in.
Yeah. I mean, totally see that. I mean, just from a application in our world, right? So, there's lots of different things, from screen printing direct to garment to DTF and things like that. Sublimation is actually, don't tell anybody, but if I had to pick a favorite, sublimation is my favorite process that we get to talk about here. And in that world, one of the big challenges is you get these graphics, but there's no bleed area, and you need that bleed area, right? And man, the AI, I put it in Photoshop, do a couple like you said, couple clicks, and I've got the bleed area. Yeah, it's not exactly perfect, but will it do the job to give me the bleed area that I need? Absolutely.
Bleed. I mean, bleed is one particular problem. I mean, let's face it. If you gave a piece of art to a designer and say, "Oh, can you increase the bleed?" then it's like, okay, you know what to do. You extend this object, you remove that clip, you do a bit of work here. One of the things, and I'm sure we'll get into talk about this in a bit, but we're increasingly printing work which is coming from our clients, and most clients are not expert graphic artists, right? But they want to have this thing made, and to be honest, I think a lot of the volume that we're going to get in the future is not, is going to be increased by lots of short runs, one-offs, this sort of thing, where you don't really have the margin to go and spend a lot of time improving those things. But the customer sees something on the screen, all right, and they want to see the finished product of the screen. They don't want to see it with additional marks and bleeds and what's this extra rectangle thing going on, right? If we can get to the stage where our software is or our print solutions are so sophisticated that bleed is a problem that we have. It's a manufacturing problem. It's not really a client's problem, right? So forcing them to do things to make our lives better in production is a bit anachronistic, I think, as we look to the future. I think we need to be, if we're being more customer centric and showing them what it is that they're going to get and allowing them to submit what they want to see, we need to use tools, maybe powered by AI, to help improve some of those back-end tasks that we would have to do.
It's so interesting where that's going, but like you said, it's just coming into the public sphere. It's not that it's brand new. It's just we're using it a little bit differently, and because it's coming into the public sphere, I think the creativity with it is increasing too.
Right, and I think part of my mind when I try and rationalize, how do I work with this? How do I see it? How do I see it affecting our landscape as people who do work, hopefully for some pay? It's a bit like AI to me is a bit like having, the old adage about putting enough monkeys in a room with typewriters, right? Eventually one of them will write Shakespeare, right? To me, AI is a bit like that infinite number of monkeys, like writing Shakespeare. I can give an AI engine something that I would like them to do, and they will hopefully give me something along the lines of what I have asked for. But I have to have asked for it. Right, I have to have an idea of the design aesthetic that I'm looking for. And because there's no guarantee that random chimp typing away on a keyboard is actually going to give me anything useful. And I think one of the powers of AI is that hopefully it filters out some of that noise. So even those ideas that are presented to me, that I get to make a decision, do I want to use this or not use it? Hopefully some of that filtering is done for me as well, and it makes it now a manageable beast. I don't know. My father's an airplane nut, right? And you can think of fly-by-wires on various airplanes, right? There are airplanes flying in the air today, but by rights, by the Wright brothers even, you shouldn't be able to fly that. But with enough electronic compensation, you can take an object which shouldn't be capable of flight and turn it into something which is actually now viable. And maybe that's something that AI will help us do as well.
Interesting. I like that. Yeah. All right. So when we first started talking about this AI side of things, you kind of started leaning into it, right? Like AI has some potential challenges, right? There's some things that I think a lot of folks, especially designers and people that have put in the work and done all of this, that are kind of looking at AI, especially around the graphics and what are the ethics of this? So I wanted to ask you, how is Adobe approaching this part of AI?
Yeah, it's really, really important area and something we have to get right. And I know something we're talking with regulators as well, because maybe this is an area for regulation. But at the end of the day, it's about, as you say, being ethical. The boys and girls who are doing stuff at Adobe around AI, you were very careful that, if wherever you have to train an AI engine, and we're very careful that when we train an engine, we're doing it with data that we have the rights to, that we've purchased the rights to. And so that's one important thing. We have a library of content, that we make available to our users already as part of their subscriptions. So that's those are the libraries that we're training our engines on. But the other thing as well is, and this is something we've been particularly active, is how do we let somebody know? You see a photo on the internet. Did that happen? Was that real, or has it been edited? And one of the areas that we're playing closely is in the content authenticity initiative, right? Basically, think of it as a way of watermarking content to say, where did it come from? Who took it? Who modified it? What did it look like before it was modified, right? So that that watermark, if you like, can flow with that content wherever it ends up. And so what the ethics of this particular content was before you try and use it in some way, or you try and interpret it. Maybe you're seeing it in a news website, and being able to click on a little button on the image and see, what did this look like before it was retouched or edited? It's really difficult to look at a piece of content and prove that it wasn't touched. So we kind of taken the inverse way of trying to solve that problem is, well, whenever it was touched, and let's face it, our tools are used in a lot of editing out there, well, we'll put a watermark in there so it was touched, right? And look for that authenticity watermark, if you like, if you want to trust what this thing is. And hopefully that's a way of trying to address that sort of problem.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm super glad to hear that, right? I mean, a company like Adobe, you guys taking a lead on that type of thing, I think is really important to get it right. You hear a lot of other stories about other kind of companies and some of the things that they're doing and saying, oh, you should just give us this stuff for free, and and I'm going to make $1 billion of it. So going at it from an ethical side, that's I think that's very important. So thank you for sharing all that. So Mike, I want to kind of trail off our AI discussion here and get into some other things that, again, you and I had a chance to talk a little earlier, and our customers are changing. The things that we're being asked to print out there in the garment and product decorating world, and how that comes to us is definitely changing. It used to be that they would show up with this napkin sketch, really terrible, and say, make this awesome and put it on a shirt with a couple colors, right? So, and that was always the groan and complain, oh, how many napkins did you get this week, kind of thing, when all the screen printers were getting together. But today, a lot of the people out there are creating amazing content, whether that's, through YouTube or whatever, curated beautiful stuff on Instagram, all this other stuff. And so they are kind of embracing this full color a little bit more. And I guess also because that a lot of them find themselves to be creators, they want to be part of that creation process, so to speak, right? They know how to make this thing that's going to go on the internet, but for us, we're like, well, that's not going to work on a shirt, for example, or something like that. But talk to us a little bit about how Adobe might be kind of bridging this gap from that quote unquote professional designer to an online content creator, and how kind of we can look at that from a decorator standpoint.
Yeah. I mean, Adobe's been synonymous in its software tools for decades now with tools like Photoshop and Illustrator, widely used in our industry, right? I mean, I can use Illustrator, but I mean, I'm going to put use in air quotes, right? I've worked for Adobe for 30 years, and can I really use Illustrator? Oh my goodness, no. Photoshop, I'm slightly better, but I mean, but even then, I use a small percentage of the functionality of Photoshop. But if I want to do something, it can do it, which is really helpful. But that's okay. I mean, I realize that I'm one of a and we maybe are one of a relatively small group of people with those expertise, because we've invested that amount of our time, our lives, into working out how to get the best out of these softwares. As you said, I mean, everybody's a creator now. You just have to look around your own family and see what they're looking at on their phones, and whether it's Instagram or TikTok or YouTube videos or whatever, or videos on Facebook, you know, this is where people are consuming their content. And, you know, I would wager most stuff on Instagram is not created by a professional graphic artist, right? Likewise on TikTok. It's an easy statement to make. I think what that then means for us when we are in the making business, right? We are in the business of taking an idea, a requirement, an inspiration that a customer has, and taking it off the screen and into the real world. The question then comes is, well, are they coming to us with a napkin, or, you know, if they've got the skills to create an Instagram post, maybe they think they've got the skills to make a design, right? Or design what this layout should be. And so what we've been focusing on with some of our teams is working out, well, how do we make that more accessible? How do we make that easier for the average person to make a design easily? We have this new product around called Adobe Express, which is, it allows people to express themselves and easily, right? The idea, you can start with a photo that you have, that you can remove the background, but you can put something else in the background maybe, or you want to do you're going to knock out the background because you're going to place it on the garment, or you want to add some text, or you want to add some graphics in and embellish it, right? So it's really designed to allow to do those simple tasks. Well, what might be difficult for or require some learning if you were doing that in Photoshop or Illustrator, make it really, really simple for the non-expert to create something which is good. When we do that, we do it in a way that allows us to integrate with our other creative applications. So, for example, if you're familiar with Adobe applications, we have this idea of libraries. The idea you can store assets or templates or fonts or designs in a library and use them across multiple projects, maybe. Well, we can share libraries between the Illustrator and Photoshop and our Express users, so that you can have a professional person creating assets which perhaps somebody less skilled can take and finesse into a design that they're trying to make.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the cool part about that, right? When you're talking about that leads to a lot of other potential opportunities for you too, I believe, right? Because like I've seen this a lot. We talked about it earlier in the week, you and I, Micah, but this kind of templated idea of kind of maintaining that control over what that final piece is going to look like, but giving the, we haven't come up with a good term for it yet, I don't think, but casual designer, can we use that?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Or customer. Because if they're going to be giving us money, then they're not just casual designers, but they're actually going to be the customer as well. But yes, go on. Sorry.
There you go. Perfect. I love that. It's a customer, giving that customer that feeling of, creativity. This is mine. It's personal to me. Right. And that changes the conversation about price. By the way, we've talked about that a lot on this program for years, but this idea, right. But again, as the print professional, how do we maintain that this thing's going to turn out right? And so an example might be an on-site event, right? You want to have somebody be able to, maybe on a touch screen kind of thing, be able to, drop their photo in or add text that's going to kind of work and fit inside of things. So like, how are you guys looking at that from a workflow perspective and to kind of enhance that?
Yeah. And of course, 1,000 different printers and we've got 1,000 different workflows. But
100%.
but conceptually, absolutely, you're doing an event. You want everybody to be pleased with this garment that they are coming away with, because we all think we're great designers, but we're not always. But the idea that you might have a series of templates which have been designed maybe in a tool like Photoshop or Illustrator, where you've been particular about the layout and the fonts, and you've done a lot of work in advance, but you can save one of these templates to your library and then jump over to Express and then add a photo to it, or change some of the text while maintaining the look and the feel of the template that you created, but allow that customization without having to go to somebody and say, well, you can customize it, but you're going to have to use Illustrator. That's where you start getting into trouble, I think. But doing that sort of thing using a tool like Express, we have various partners that we're working as well that use Adobe technology and might do this in an e-commerce environment, right? How do you enable your customers to upload, their image, do a small amount of changes on your website, and effectively have a web to print e-commerce solution where they can order something for, maybe after the event. It's not just what you did on site, but somebody gets home but they had some photos that they took at that event when they got home, and they didn't see that t-shirt booth or that merch booth at that event, but you can put something on a website and say, well, upload that picture that you took while you were there, and have a tail on that opportunity. Once you get back to your office and they get back to their homes, maybe that sort of thing can play in as well. So I think that sort of thing is could be quite a good opportunity.
Yeah. Well, and I think you probably mentioned this, but I also feel like it's important to kind of make sure that we're quick, because I think one of the challenges, I always felt like one of the challenges with that kind of an idea was, right, again, how much control can you give, right? And so if, like you said, if it's like, oh, well, you're gonna have to change that in Illustrator, that kind of stops things for a lot of folks. But you can lock down certain parts of that template, right? So
yes, the idea that when you share that template, you can lock particular objects so that people can't move them around or make changes to it inadvertently, and so you're just changing the bits where you want somebody to change something and get a pleasing result. So very powerful.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just giving my perspective and some of the things that I've seen, but our world changing from going out and trying to get orders of 1,000 or 10,000 of a static image to now the world really more wants to be, let's go out and get those 1,000 orders of one, and each of them is going to be slightly different, right? I mean, even as simple as just changing the monogram in it or changing the text, but not like the old variable data kind of world where it was just this block text. I mean, you're using an actual designed font, and you can have that changed.
And what's important there, Aaron, is that when we're creating these tools, and this is something we're very particular about, we want to preserve the fidelity of that design all the way through, all right, from design all the way from a templating to the design all the way through to the print stage as well. We don't want to be taking our design and converting it into one JPEG very early on, because then that design's locked down, right? We can't do anything with that, and the quality might not be so good either. These tools are all based on the same technology. So, for example, if you put something in one of these applications and you put a color profile, I don't know how technical your audience is, but I've taken it on an iPhone versus an Android phone versus my box brownie camera and scanned it or whatever. But making sure that the color information is flowing with the right parts of the content, we've got a much better chance of being able to reproduce that. Making sure the fonts are live in this thing that we're creating, and the fonts are traveling with the content as well, so that I can make a change to my design. Maybe I'm changing the name, for example, but because the font data is available, I can make those changes. And if I've got that font data traveling with the document all the way through to the print and manufacture stage, then I know I can reproduce that font with high quality as well, and not just have some pixelated mess.
Yeah. Well, I think that kind of leads us into the next thing. Like as I said, you and I had a chance to talk, and I honestly did not really kind of put enough stock into the power that is the PDF, the Adobe's PDF technology. I didn't really think through that until you were. I mean, it's just like some light bulbs came off. So maybe share that. How is the PDF technology kind of enhancing our workflow? And as a garment or product printer, what should I be looking for there?
Yeah, well, PDF had its 30th birthday last year, so it's been around a while, and
So did you bring that to Adobe when you started?
I did not.
Oh, okay, all right. I was trying to make the connection there.
I was one of the early. Well, I'm like early. No, sorry, I can't claim to be early.
Okay, all right, that's fine. I'm sorry.
With everybody else, back in the early 90s, when we first saw PDF, we weren't quite sure what it was for, and somebody had this idea that you can put a catalog on a floppy disk and you can take it to another computer and view it on a screen. It's like, why would I ever want to look at a catalog on a screen? It sounded a bit alien in the early 90s. We do it all the time now, of course.
Yeah.
But one of the things that PDF has allowed us to do in the design space is design and share our content, our designs, in a way that is independent of the manufacturing process, which is going to be required. So it doesn't matter if I am printing. You said earlier, are we doing dye sub? Are we doing direct to garment? Are we doing direct to film? In other industries, are we making plates, or making screens even, right? Because we'll be separating the screens. One of the things that PDF allows us to do is to maintain all the original data that we had from the customer, tagging it in an appropriate way so that we know what their intentions were, and giving us a really good chance of being able to reapply it, whatever the manufacturing process that we're going to be using to make that particular garment. As opposed to having our designers, design the screens that we'll be screen printing. Well, okay, maybe if we go that way, then maybe there's a chance we could take that screen printed design and print it digitally, because we're only ordering one, and it's not economic to make screens for that job. But how much better if we allow the customer to design in a world that's familiar to them? Don't throw anything away. Give me the fonts, give me everything else, and then I will manufacture it using the most appropriate technology to make you happy with these t-shirts or these garments that you're going to get.
Yeah.
So one of the things that PDF does is, images can be kept at their original resolution. We have information in there about what the colors are supposed to look like really look like, with color profiles and stuff. We keep vectors as vector. We keep text as text. We preserve fonts. We do all these amazing things, and allow effectively a digital proof to be shared with the customer, but have that digital master file used at all these different stages in our manufacturing process.
Wow. Yeah. So I get in, and maybe I'm not looking at this correctly, so you feel free to correct me for sure. But I almost kind of look at it like it's you're kind of, it's the language, right, that's being used, and so it's making it so everything speaks the same language. Like you said, it's got the master file, I think, was what stood out to me when you were sharing that, and you can use that PDF technology kind of as that master file in your workflow. And because a lot of the decorators that might be listening in, or a lot of our regulators here, they might screen print. They might also have a direct to garment machine, right? They also might, maybe even do some vinyl cutting, and they need the vector files, but they could have that out of a PDF. Is that kind of what you're
absolutely. And the alternative that the standard way we would solve this problem, in the past, maybe even now, is we ask the customer for their original designs, right? We ask them for, can you give me the Illustrator file? And some people will say Illustrator file, and others will say, oh yeah, here's the Illustrator file. But then you've got the Illustrator file. Well, have you got the fonts? Okay, well, the problem with I don't want a font, so I outline the fonts. Okay, well, so you get the outline version of a design. Oh, but you misspelt my name. All right, you've got to change it. Well, you've outlined the fonts now. I'm sorry. It's a good way of solving the problem, but it's imperfect, and hopefully with PDF we get some advantages there. I mean, the selling point for using PDF in print workflows traditionally is that the design is locked down and you don't change it. right? And that is a great benefit of PDF, right?
Yeah.
Typically, you get download a PDF from the internet, and the reason somebody shared a PDF with you is that they've done a lot of work on the design and how it should look, and you're able to preserve that aesthetic and view it or print it or manufacture it on any device. That's good, but it's going to look consistent. One of the things that some people are aware of and others aren't is if you really need to, there are tools, including from Adobe, that allow you to take that PDF and make changes to it. Right? You can take a PDF file and correct the spelling of a name in the text. You could replace that image and swap something out from a PDF file. PDF files are technically still editable with the right software, with the right skill set. So it's a digital master. You can treat it as a proof. You can certainly use it to sign off as a contract proof when you are looking to. And I'm using contract proof with a small c and a small p, but you can use it as, right, this is what it's going to look like when I print it. But it doesn't just have to be used for that sort of use case. You know, these documents can still live and can still be amended if you need them to.
Nice. Okay. All right. And when you say, you can kind of edit those PDF files, as you mentioned there, you mentioned that Adobe has some tools. I mean, are we talking like Acrobat? Is that
Acrobat? You can edit PDF files with Acrobat. You can modify them with Illustrator. You can even load them in. I mentioned Adobe Express earlier. You can even bring a PDF file into Adobe Express and make changes there live within the document. Again, depending on your level of skill and how much control you want. There are tools there for you. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Adobe Express is one of those, like, I'll be working on something in Photoshop and it's like, you know what, let me just pop this piece into Adobe Express and use the functionality there. And then I do that way more than that.
Yeah, I use it as well quite a bit, Aaron. And to be honest, where I'm seeing it used, one particular thing, we're on a podcast. We're posting this as a video. You need to make a quick thumbnail for your podcast or something else. It's not something I'm going to spend a lot of time on because, I do one podcast a week, but I want to create a custom graphic. And the least time I can spend doing it, the better. In that sort of use case, Express could really be a useful tool. Just do something really quick and simple, which still has the same pleasing result. So it's a great tool.
Yep, definitely. Okay. All right. Well, we got a little bit more time, but we're kind of running down towards the end. So this is where I ask you, Mike, to bring out your crystal ball, get it nice and clean, ready for it. Predict the future. No, I'm just kidding. But I guess how do you envision kind of the future of content creation for this space, this print space, this garment decorating product print space, especially as you kind of see, integration with the Adobe's tools?
I think what we're doing is we're shortening the process. We're accelerating the process of getting something made and delivered to me. All right. You came in with the idea of, how many napkins have you got this week and, what setup are we going to do? What that really means when we think about that sort of way of working is that the lead time, might be quite long between somebody having an idea and having that box of garments, ready for their event. I think we've all seen these timelines are contracting, right? And I think making it easier to create the content is part of that. We've talked about how we're reducing the runs, right? And we're printing 1, 2, 3 t-shirts rather than having to print 1,000 for it to be economic. A lot of e-commerce and web to print solutions are going to be a part of that as well. I think you take it to the next level. One problem we have when we're doing an order of a garment is that you better get it right first time, right? Because if you create something and you deliver it to the client and they say, oh, I don't like that, that's not what I had in mind. Right. What are you going to do with that? Do you let them return it for a full refund? Maybe you do, but in which case you're going to swallow that cost. So the more we can do to share with the customer exactly what will this look like when it's manufactured so that they get a good perception of what's going to be delivered.
Yeah.
I mean, in the olden days, we did used to call these contract proofs with a capital C, capital P, but that was a long part of the process. And contract proofs were pretty expensive, right? Or we'd do strike-offs and sampling, right?
Yeah.
But it's not economic with a run of one. So, you know, how can we show our customer what their design is going to look like when printed on this garment? And the more accurate and on-screen, I'll call it a preview, that you can share. You know, how does that design, when you put it on a t-shirt, wrap around the human form? You know, don't show somebody, you know, they've got a square design. Well, don't show them a picture of a t-shirt and a picture of a square, you know, on the front of that shirt, because, you know, I'm not that flat chested anymore.
I'd like to be a little flatter,
I don't have my chest is no longer flat, and I can tell you where I can balance my beer. But the more we can do to try and use technology to show people what this final thing will look like when they get it delivered to them or in the mail or otherwise, that sort of thing, I think, is where we're going. You know, making it. And I don't mean I'm not so worried about, you know, scanning somebody and giving them a digital avatar so that when they go shopping, they know what they look like in this dress. I don't think we need to necessarily go quite that far. But the more we can do to set the right expectation about what you will be unboxing when you get your delivery, then the better chance we have of not having returns and having our customers pleased. And after all, we want them coming back for more. If we spend all that time and effort getting a customer and they place one order and they're not so happy with it, and they don't come back and do repeat orders, then we spent all that time on our marketing and getting that lead, and we're throwing it away. We want people to be delighted with what they're getting, whether they're ordering 1,000 or 100 or one of something, and we want them coming back to us. So the more we can embrace technology to help us achieve that, I think the better.
Yeah. I think that's such a good point, right? It just set those expectations, and like you said, it's not economical to, oh, well, here's your proof that you get in the mail. Oh, that's your actual finished product that you're getting in the mail.
Right.
So, showing them. And I think from our industry's perspective, we do run into some unique challenges there because we're not printing onto white. We're not printing onto. I mean, even in traditional print, there's some to the kind of paper you're using and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, now we've got dot cane and we've got this fabric that's going to be showing through and all this other stuff that brings in these unique challenges. And like you said, using technology to show a true look is important.
Yeah. Are we going to be putting down a white first and printing color on top of that or not? And depending on, I mean, we know we can get great effects by sometimes, not putting down that base first. Particularly on a we don't always print on white and black t-shirts, right? We have other colors are available, but how does that then look when it interacts with the design what we're printing? If we can show people that, then we're off to a much better place.
100%. Love it. All right. Well, Mike, if people are interested in learning a little bit more about Adobe Print and the tools and maybe the community, where might be a good place for them to go and check out some of this information?
Yes, Adobe has a website. You will be surprised to hear in 2024. You can go to adobe.com/go/textiles. That's where we have some resources there talking about some of the things we do in the print world. I am part of the Adobe Print family, and so we're also on LinkedIn. You'll find our print family on LinkedIn if you search for Adobe Print Family.
Okay, sounds good. We've got those there, and I'll put them in the comments as well. So I appreciate you guys letting me talk and type at the same time. But I guess, Mike, I do want to get one final nugget out of you while I still got a little bit of time, if you don't mind. We talked about a lot of different things, a lot of different programs, different things like that. Knowing and it sounds like quite a bit about our space here for sure. What specific Adobe products or features that the design professionals out there or people in our industry specifically should be aware of that might optimize their workflow?
Yeah. I mean, a couple of treats if you haven't seen them already, and there are plenty of videos about these things on YouTube and elsewhere as well. If you haven't checked it out yet, do take a look at Adobe Express. It's really quite a powerful tool and very, very easy to use. Even if you are not the designer in your business, I challenge you, you could easily pick up Adobe Express and be creating great stuff yourself very easily. Worth looking at. You'll see integrated with that what we call Adobe Firefly. That's our tools for doing AI stuff, and play with that. You can give it prompts, you can ask it to improve you upload an image and improve it. You can do some exciting stuff there. That's worth looking at. That also manifests itself in products like Adobe Photoshop. If you haven't checked out the later versions, most recent version of Adobe Photoshop, that's out there. You'll find that on adobe.com. What you can do in that tool, and a bunch of this is available in Express as well. The same AI-powered stuff is available in Express.
Okay.
But in Photoshop, I've done things like, as you said, expanding an image to improve a bleed. I would love to take a screen grab of your office there and put it into Photoshop and do an AI-powered generative expand and imagine what the rest of your office looks like. You know, you can take a scene or a photo that you've taken and play with that, and it can be a real fun wow moment. People have done it to what would this album cover look like if you expand it in both dimensions and see what it would look like. You can put your own content in there. It's just fun.
Very cool.
I would say play with that. Have a look at some of those tools. You won't be able to put them down.
Yeah. Oh man, the rabbit hole you'll go down there would be fun for sure. Well, there we go. So we've got our homework. We're going to go check that out. Mike, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate you taking some time with us here today. And it was a pleasure to meet you, and looking forward to seeing what Adobe continues to do. And so keep up the great work over there.
Great. Thanks so much, Aaron. Appreciate everybody's time. Have a great day.
All right. Awesome talking to Mike, and again, appreciate his time. And it was really great to meet him, and looking forward to maybe some more conversations in the future. So make sure that you're checking out those links, the adobe.com/go textile, and then finding them over there on LinkedIn in the Adobe Print family. So great stuff there today. All right, you guys. Well, we've got a few things to kind of close us up here today. Happenings, the on the road, the travels, as I mentioned, Eric and Terry are currently in Long Beach. And so if you are in that area, make sure you get over there to the Impressions Expo and check those guys out. I think Terry will be found in the equipment zone booth over there and whatnot. But for me, my first road show, it looks like here, I will be traveling to the DAX Kansas City show. And I have 2 seminars happening that day: the fundamentals of pricing your printing and the fundamentals for small business growth. And that will be happening on Friday, February 23rd, 2023. So go over to daxshow.com and check that out, and get registered for those seminars. I think the seats are filling up in a number of the classes. So sign up early. It does also look like I will be heading to the Impressions Expo in Atlantic City, as well as some potential shows with the new folks at Graphics Pro this year. So I don't have a whole lot to report officially quite yet, but stay tuned. I'm looking forward to actually getting out on the road more than I thought I was going to this year. Also, step away from the mic to show you, but my book, The Fundamentals of Business Success, it is out. This is an actual copy. It's real. It's got all the content in it. It's got over 100,000 words of some great information about how to build the foundation of your business. So you can check that out. You can see it next to my name there at osg.link/bizbook. And then the one other thing that I have to share with you guys is each Wednesday morning, I get to hang out with the Fab Four, which includes Tanya Deutscher, my wife, Kylene Montgomery, Becky Kotzer, and myself. And we talk a lot of mindset stuff. Tanya and Kylene bring you the Wellness Toolbox, and Becky and I break down the Uncommon Mindset. And every once in a while, we'll also put a small business gem in there. So check that out and tune in live. It happens bright and early Central Time, 7 a.m. Central Time. So it'll get your Wednesday off to a perfect start, or you can go back and watch the replay at any time. You can do that at liveosg.com to check all that out. As far as the guys, Terry and Eric, we'll let them bring what they've got coming up. But Eric will be out at DAX with me. Looks like Terry's got his screen printing classes coming up, so stay tuned on all that. And it looks like Terry will also be at the Impressions Expo, and I believe Eric will be too, but I don't quote me on that. So we're looking forward to seeing you guys out there on the road. Now, also, as I mentioned, we do have the secret sauce for you today. And even though Terry's not here, the power of video is made this possible. So without further ado, I am going to let Terry bring you the secret sauce today.
Today's secret sauce is for our screen printing friends, specifically properly degreasing screens. Let me start by explaining the what and the why of degreasing. The what is cleaning your screen mesh thoroughly before coating with emulsion. The why is the fact that emulsion we use to coat our screens is water-based, so any contaminants on the mesh can cause the emulsion to not adhere properly. The results of contaminants on the screen mesh is the scourge of screen printing: pinholes. Pinholes don't necessarily show up on the first print. Maybe on the third print, a tiny dot of color shows up on your garment. 2 more prints and another dot, another print and 3 more dots of color show up. And you use a roll of Scotch tape covering the holes on the screen after every print stroke. When screens come from your supplier, they will already have oil and other contaminants on the mesh. The oil from your skin handling those screens will cause more contamination. So before you coat your screens, you need to properly degrease the mesh. The process is simple. First, wet the screen in your washout sink. Second, use a pump spray bottle to apply a small amount of degreasing solution that you buy from your screen print supplier. Third, using a non-abrasive brush, gently scrub the mesh on both sides. Be sure the brush is only used for the degreasing process so you don't further contaminate the screen with a dirty brush. Last, with a garden hose pressure, wash the suds from the mesh. Once the screen is dry, you are ready to coat with emulsion. So what's some of the misinformation out there? You only need to degrease your screen when they come out of the box, but not when you reclaim the screen to reuse and coat with emulsion again. Absolutely wrong. There are probably more contaminants on that screen after it's been reclaimed than when it came out of the box in the first place. You must degrease your screen every time before you coat with emulsion again. Otherwise, pinholes. Another bit of misinformation is the use of an abrader the first time you degrease your screens. Again, incorrect information. An abrader is degreaser with grit in it to roughen up the surface of the mesh to make the emulsion adhere better. Wrong again. If you use wet emulsion, you're coating both sides of the screen mesh and it adheres to itself through the mesh. But roughening up the mesh can create tiny tears that cause your mesh to lose tension faster. It's going to shorten the life of your screen. The only reason to use an abrader is if you use a capillary film as your emulsion. Capillary film is dry emulsion that adheres to just one side of your wet screen. Capillary film is not as durable as a wet emulsion and not commonly used in garment printing. I recommend buying degreaser from your screen print supplier. It's simply a pure detergent with no additives. Can you use anything else? You can. Simple Green from the hardware store works, but not dishwashing soap, even though it says it's grease fighting. Dishwashing soap has hand softeners, oil-based hand softeners. But we're screen printers. We should use products that are made for the screen printing process. Here's my pro tip advice on the critical window of screen prep success. I don't care what you do with the screen before it's degreased. You can touch the mesh, you can have it in a room with cotton lint in the air or dust, but once you degrease the screen, you need to get it dry as quickly as possible. While it's wet, a screen can attract dust and lint from the air that will adhere to the wet mesh. Pinholes waiting to happen. I recommend either a professional drying cabinet or a rack you build yourself. And if you build your own rack to hold your screens, place a dehumidifier in the bottom and enclose the screens. The faster they dry, dehumidifier pulling that moisture out of the air, the less potential contamination. Once dry, coat right away. And again, get the emulsion on the screen dry as quickly as possible. Wet emulsion can attract contaminants as well. Properly degreased screens will virtually eliminate pinhole issues on the press. That's my secret sauce for today.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Terry. Appreciate you bringing us that secret sauce. So again, all you screen printers out there, hopefully that was useful for you. The scourge, pinholes, the scourge of screen printing. I think that is probably very true from what I've heard. So thank you, Terry, very much. All right, you guys. Well, we are right on time here. We've come to the close of another show. I just want to take a moment and thank Mike Scrutton. I think I don't know. I probably got it wrong again, but thank you, Mike. Appreciate you very much for being here, and love all of that great information that we got. And so looking forward to talking to Mike again soon. I do want to thank Terry and Eric for all of their help and everything that they do to continue to make Two Regular Guys what it is each and every week. And looking forward to having them back next week on the show. Speaking of next week on the show, we will be joined by a gentleman named Barry, and I have not confirmed. I know what his last name is, but I'm not even going to come anywhere close to getting it right. So I'm not going to bother butchering his last name. Those of you that know me, mispronouncing names is my thing, apparently. But anyhow, Barry will be joining us, and he's going to be talking about utilizing virtual assistants to grow your business. And I've had a chance to meet him and talk with him, and he's got some really interesting ideas and concepts around the use of virtual assistants in your business. So I think you guys are going to really enjoy this conversation that we have next week as well. So until then, I am standing in for Terry Combs and Eric Campbell, and my name is Aaron Montgomery, and that was the Two Regular Guys.
Here we go. We're out.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to Two Regular Guys. Check out our website at tworegularguys.com. That's the number 2, regularguys.com. You can also interact with us over at our Facebook page, facebook.com/tworegularguys, or send us a tweet, twitter.com/tworegularguys. And we have a YouTube page. You can find all that from our website, tworegularguys.com. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to spending some time with you again next week.